Hi, Peter King, and this is a new season of the Peter King Podcast. Thanks so much for joining, for listening, for watching, for experiencing the Peter King Podcast. So I'll tell you in a little bit what exactly I've been doing. I've been gone for 3 months. You haven't seen me. You haven't heard from me. I took a little hiatus. You get to be 66 years old, and one of your goals in life is, can I really take a nap every day? And I have to tell you, that was a lot of fun. So anyway, I'll get into what I did on my summer vacation, but let's talk a little bit about what you're going to hear on this podcast. I'm going to give you 3 conversations I've had in training camps along the way. This is number 5 for me in Philadelphia at the Eagles. First conversation you're going to hear is from Super Bowl quarterback Jalen Hurts, the wealthy new quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. Then we're going to roll out a conversation I had, my most enjoyable so far on this training camp trip, and that includes Aaron Rodgers, by the way. But my most enjoyable conversation, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the wide receiver of the Detroit Lions. And did you know that Amon-Ra St. Brown is fluent in 3 languages and took the SAT in English, German, and French? So there's a little trivia contest for you to stump your friends at on whatever. And the last conversation you will hear today is one I did also on my training camp trip with Kenny Pickett, the second-year quarterback and first-year full-time starter of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's just talk for a minute about what you're going to hear from me over the next few weeks. I'm on my training camp trip, and I tell people all the time, this is my favorite time of the year. It's better than the playoffs, a lot better than the Super Bowl, better than the season. And the reason is you get to have conversations with people. You get to sit in the office of Nick Sirianni, have 15, 20 minutes talking to him, and with everybody. You know, so far on this trip, you know, Aaron Rodgers, Robert Saleh with the Jets, and then Mike Tomlin enlightening talk with the Steelers, Kenny Pickett, Patrick Peterson. So as you go along, you realize that the best time of year to talk to people in the league is in July and August. You know what? They don't have a 3-game losing streak yet. They're all optimistic. They've all got a great shot. They're all going to the playoffs. So it's a good time of year to talk to people. And the other part of training camp that I think is so good is that you can see the design that all teams, you know, have going forward for this year. I'll give you 2 sentences on each team I've seen so far. The New York Jets, obviously it's Aaron Rodgers' team, and what a job he has done so far as sort of an assistant coach on the field. Robert Saleh said he's the best one he's ever had over the years. The Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's interesting. The Steelers are Camp Tranquility to me. And so far, I think one of the things they did really well is they did great in free agency. They didn't sign the most famous guys. But look, Patrick Peterson, the 7th-rated corner last year by Pro Football Focus. Isaac Seumalo, the guard from the Eagles, has stepped in there as the smartest guy on their offensive line. Really an interesting addition. But they did a very good job in free agency. The Detroit Lions. There's a scene with the Lions that I just can't forget. And that is driving into training camp with my NBC colleagues, Kelsey Bartels and Kristen Coleman, and driving up. And it is raining outside in Detroit. This is Saturday morning. And I look around, and there is a mob of people to get into the Detroit Lions training camp. It's amazing. I haven't seen fans there the last few times I've been there. So a lot of excitement over the Lions, a lot of expectations of the team the NFL has scheduled for the first game of the season against the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. And then moving on to Buffalo. There's a lot of questions about this team. They had a crushing loss to end the season, obviously to Cincinnati. But, the thing that occurred to me is this is all Damar all the time. It was Damar Hamlin's world, and we are just living in it. And so we don't even know. We're not positive he's going to make the team. He probably will, but he played last year because of injury in the secondary. He's probably the fourth safety at best right now with the addition of Taylor Rapp from the Rams in free agency. So he's not guaranteed anything. Let's just hope that Damar Hamlin comes out of training camp as one of the 53 Buffalo Bills. Now in Philadelphia, so interesting to watch a team that is loaded, is confident, but is doing everything it can to not buy into the hype. And you'll hear that in my conversation with Jalen Hurts. So let's get to that right now. We'll talk about more as we go through the podcast. But right now, let's hear my conversation with Philadelphia quarterback Jalen Hurts. Here with Jalen Hurts, quarterback of the NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles. Does it hurt to be referred to as NFC champion Eagles instead of Super Bowl champion Eagles? Do you still think about it?
Yeah, you think about a lot of moments that you can use as fuel moving forward, and it's a great opportunity we had last year, a great run we had, but, last year is just long gone, and it's about moving forward and building an identity for this team, figuring out what we're going to be this year.
In the offseason, you signed one of the biggest contracts a player has ever signed in the NFL. What did it mean for you after being sort of doubted quite a bit, like at Alabama first, having to transfer, then coming in here ostensibly as a backup, winning the job? What did that mean to you signing that deal?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to give gratitude towards, and I'm very thankful to be the leader of this franchise and to have the opportunities I have ahead of me. But the journey is far from over. So I just embrace the day-by-day grind and process of everything, and I've always been elite at focusing on what I need to focus on. So I'm going to try and do my best to maintain that.
I asked Nick Sirianni, what'd you say to Jalen after he signed his contract? He said, well, I just said congratulations. You remember what you said to him?
I don't remember particularly, but
he said it was something like, let's get back to work.
Right. Well, yeah. I think for him, I think he has a good feel for my desires as a player, as a leader, as a man, and the things that I want to accomplish here. And we plan on doing that together. But it's a day-by-day thing, So there's a lot of fuel there.
I remember the first time I talked to you last year after you played Jacksonville, and in the course of about a 7-minute interview, you referred to your father twice as Coach Hurts.
Yeah.
Not as Dad, not as anything else. Pops, Coach Hurts.
Yeah. Is
that from growing up in Texas, or is that just the way you feel about your dad?
Well, I think just with the childhood that I've had, there's been a lot of opportunities to call him Dad and to call him Coach. But there are a lot of times on the sideline when we were on the sideline together where I did call him Daddy, and I love him as a father and as a coach. But he's played a pivotal and monumental role in my development, who I am as a man, the things I've been able to see, the things I've been able to witness. It's all made me who I am. So that's all the credit to him.
2 questions about the Super Bowl. When you look back at that game, you may not think this because you guys lost the game. But when I think about it, I say it must be pretty special to play the best game of your life in the biggest game of your life. Does that occur to you?
No, I think that's for everybody else to talk about. I went in there with a goal, and that was what it was. So I think I moved forward from it. Always using everything that I can as slight motivation, but I don't need much. So it's a day-by-day journey. This is where we are now, and we're creating an identity for what this team is going to be, and it's a process in itself.
You have the lock screen on your phone. It's a picture of you walking off the field at the Super Bowl, the confetti flying in the background, the red confetti for the Kansas City Chiefs and not for you guys. Why do you have that on your phone?
I care not to comment on that.
Yeah.
You guys wouldn't know if it was up to me. So, yeah, there ain't much to say about it.
Okay. So I want to ask you one thing about going forward, okay? What did you do this offseason specifically to try to become a better player, a better quarterback?
I think just the overall development, and trying to grow in every part of my game. You know, every time you go into an off season, for me at least, I look at guys like MJ and Kobe and how they kind of diagnose their game, and obviously two different sports, but just trying to kind of push forward my strengths and get better at my strengths and the things that I do well, and then turn my weaknesses into my strengths. So just improving in all areas, and now just, like I said the other day, I really embracing the idea of being. I've always been a unique player, but embracing the rarity of being a true triple threat, and being able to do all of the things that the quarterback position requires. So I just want to continue developing those three areas of my game, be the best leader I can be, and that goes a long way as well.
Triple threat, throwing, running, leading?
Throwing, running, mine.
Yeah.
It was a long time. They told me, they said guys like me couldn't think or couldn't process, so trying to put that to sleep.
Last thing, when I asked Nick Sirianni what about this offseason with your quarterback is different, and he goes, I sit in on quarterback meetings now, and I listen to him with the coaches and with the players, and it's like sitting in on a coaches meeting, not a position meeting. Do you feel really confident and getting more confident in your ability to diagnose like a coach?
I think confidence in all of those things, it comes with preparation and it comes with time. You know, you look at the course of my career, I can say honestly that it's been a true development, but it's been a grind and an intense grind, and intentionally trying to just grow, learn, and soak up as much as I can. So as time goes by, that's what I yearn for, but it's a process, you know, and I embrace and find the thrill in that process of the game and that part of the game.
Jalen Hurts, thanks a lot. Have a fun year.
Thank you. Appreciate you. I hope you enjoy it.
You know, my thanks to Jalen Hurts, and we will be back right after this with one of my new favorite players in the NFL, Detroit wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. You know, next we're going to hear from Detroit wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're really going to enjoy this. But before I get into that, I just want to tell you a couple of things that happened to me on my time away. I got a lot of nice email from people, hey, enjoy your time off. I've never in my life taken 11 weeks off. And I wrote my column on May 8th, and then I really didn't work or get back to do anything until a little more than a week ago. And I really didn't do a lot on my trip. I visited my two daughters and their families, total of 3 grandchildren in Berkeley and Seattle. We had extended visits with both. And I actually went to a wedding in Austria. My nephew got married at a palace in Austria. It was really a cool thing to not only see him get married, but to be at a wedding in Austria. Say, what are we doing here? But really a lot of fun. And then other than that, I mean, I set the world record for most Jeopardy episodes watched in 11 weeks. I didn't do a lot. I did some reading. I read a Cormac McCarthy book, The Road. Went to see Oppenheimer. Love that. I mean, but I didn't do a lot. I took a nap probably 90% of the days that I was off. And I've learned that not only could I grow to be a professional napper, but now on the training camp trip for the last few days, without taking a nap, I'm in mourning. I can't take it. I just can't. Anyway, enough about me. Let's go to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I guarantee you listen to this, and you're going to have a new favorite player in the National Football League. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm here at Detroit Lions training camp with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I said as we were preparing to do this that I think you're one of the most interesting people in the NFL, but I think I'm selling you short. You might be the most interesting person in the NFL, and people don't really know. So I just want to go through a little bit of your life story, okay? You spent a lot of time as a kid in Germany, and you weren't bilingual, you were trilingual.
Yep.
Can you tell me the story of knowing and learning 3 languages?
Yeah, so growing up, my mother's from Germany. So, when you're born, you're around your mom a lot. My dad was working, and she only spoke German to us. So that was basically my first language. I was going to a French school in California. So it's an all-immersion French school. I only speak French the whole time. You're out in recess. They're speaking French. Teachers speaking French to you. You want a snack, you got to speak to them in French. There's only 1 hour of English. So I'm going to a French school. My mom is speaking to me in German when I'm with her at home. My dad's speaking to me in English, so I'm learning 3 languages at once. But for me as a kid growing up, it was always normal. It was, when I'm talking to my mom, it's German. When I'm talking to my dad, it's English. Talking to my brothers, it's English, unless, I don't want someone to know what I'm saying. I'll speak German. And then when I'm at school, it's French. So that was kind of my whole life. I was balancing that for all the way until 6th grade. And then in the summers when I was growing up, all the way until high school, my mom's grandparents, so my mom's parents, they lived out in Germany. So we'd visit them every summer, me and my 2 brothers and my mom. We'd go out to Germany, stay at their house. My dad would stay back home because he's working. He'd come visit us every now and then. But in the summer, we'd be in Germany for about 2 months, spend our summers there. It was always super fun with our grandparents. And then, like I said, still going to French school. And then once I got to 3rd grade, my dad, I was in 3rd grade, and my other brother's 4th, 5th. He decided, he's like, you know what, let's send the boys to school in Paris. So he sent me and my 2 brothers to school in Paris for a whole semester.
What did you say when he told you that?
I was so young, I didn't really think much of it. I was always traveling. We've been all across Europe as kids. My parents were big in traveling, so we traveled across the country. We took cruises everywhere. So for me, it was just another, not vacation, but, I'm going somewhere else to go to school. And I spoke French because I was going to a French school, so I didn't think too much of it. I had friends, but I never had like a best friend really growing up. My 2 brothers were my best friends, so shoot, I'm with them. I'm with my mom. I know they're going to take care of me, and let's go do it. So like I said, in 3rd grade, my dad sent us to France, went to school in Paris for a semester, did that. Super fun, one of the best times of my life. And then once I got to 6th grade, the French immersion school in California, it stops at 6th grade. So 7th and 8th grade, I went to a regular middle school back at by my house, and then went to high school, and that was that.
Okay, so if I dropped you in the middle of Paris right now, you would know a little bit more than Où est la bibliothèque?
100%. Where's the library?
Yeah, but I'm saying you would be able to function normally.
I would be able to
speak
function
fluently.
normally. You know what? So French is a little different. It's actually, I don't speak it as much as I used to, just because my mom is, like I said, she's German, so I'm only speaking German to her. And then no one's really speaking French to me, so I don't speak it as much. I understand almost everything, but like I told some people this, I want to go back to France when I get some free time, maybe next off season, and really just perfect the language again. Because when I see stuff, like I hear people speak French, I understand what they're saying, but then sometimes I try to speak, and there's certain words that I forget that I know if I went there for about 2 or 3 weeks, I would get it all back. But French is an awesome language.
What's the benefit to being trilingual and knowing multiple languages?
They say that it opens up a different part of the brain. And, I mean, I think I'm a pretty smart guy. Just in general in life, picking up things, memorizing things. Languages is a big – you got to be able to memorize words. That's a big part of it. And then, conceptually with different language, obviously English is a little different, but German and French, you have conjugations, you got past, present, future tense. So there's a bunch of different things that go on into those languages that can kind of be, tough. But, for me, it's like I tell everyone, it was my life. That's what only thing I knew growing up, and it was normal for me to learn those different languages. I would say as a young kid, I wasn't really fluent in any 3 of the languages. So I felt like when I spoke English, I wasn't fluent. When I spoke German, I wasn't fluent. And when I spoke French, I wasn't fluent, but I was, good enough in all 3. And I remember being a kid and like, man, I wish I could just speak English as good as my friends. But as I got older, I mean, it got easier and got normal. But as a young kid, I was juggling all 3 different languages, and it was kind of tough to be fluent in all 3.
So there is a story that when you were getting ready to go to college, you took the SAT in multiple languages. Is that true?
That's true, yeah. I took it in English, French, and German.
Wow. I never knew they had the SAT in Germany.
Yeah, they have it. Yeah.
Why did you do that?
It wasn't my choice. It was my mom's choice. She wanted us to do it.
Did you get the same score relatively in all?
German and French were a little lower, but they were still good scores compared to my English.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, it wasn't my choice. My mom was really, really tough on us on academics. So she's like, "You guys are taking it. You have no choice." I was like, "Okay, let's do it."
I tell people this story about Bill Belichick. Why is he such a phenomenal coach, and why does he know more than everybody else? Well, first of all, his father was the first guy who ever wrote a book about football scouting. He did it in the 50s. Yeah. He was an assistant coach at Navy. And so he was immersed in that. He went to practice at the Naval Academy. And then he would go home, and his mom knew 7 languages and was always asking him to read to her while she was preparing dinner.
Right.
So he would read his lessons or whatever, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, and, spend an hour with her while she's preparing, the meal. And she's talking to him about all the stuff that he's learning at the time. And I said, what could be a better environment than somebody who grew up in a love of learning and an insatiable love of football like his father had.
Right.
So, and your story kind of reminds me of that to some degree.
Yep.
Yeah. I want to ask you, let's go to football. Because to me, you were one of those guys who, on draft day, you could have gone to a lot of different teams and you could have gone in a lot of different places in the draft. 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, whatever. But you told me a story last year that I thought was incredible. After you didn't get drafted on day 2 of the draft, you didn't just go home and drink 9 bottles of whiskey or something. You might have, I don't know. But you didn't just go home and mope. Tell me about day 2 of the draft a couple of years ago, what you did after you did not get drafted.
Yeah, so I had like day 2, I was expected. I thought I was going to get drafted on day 2. I had a bunch of family and friends over. I would say like over 30 people at the house.
In Los Angeles, in the LA area.
In Orange County, yeah.
Orange County, yeah.
In Southern California. NFL sent out the cameras, just in case if I get drafted, they see the live view and they can show it on TV. Had the cameras there, everything. So we waited. Day 2 of the draft, 2nd and 3rd round, obviously. Waited around, saw a bunch of different receivers get picked. I thought I was going to get the call, never got it. And then, I remember the last pick going, I was like, they were announcing the pick. And at that point, it's like, it wasn't me because I would have got the call already. So I knew it was over. I remember saying bye to everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry that, you made some people came from like hour and a half away. I said, thank you for coming. I'm sorry it didn't go the way that, we wanted, that I wanted. And I just remember, crying, being super upset. I didn't want anyone to really see me upset. So I just remember, I drove there. So I'm going to drive back.
You got in the car alone?
Got in the car alone. Went back to my, I was Airbnb in a place in Newport with my brothers. Going back, super upset, crying. And just, I would say, one of the days that I'll never forget for me as a player, as a person, just how mad I was, because I would just leave it at that. How upset I was, and then going back home, I was like, I can go to bed. I can feel sorry for myself. I was like, you know what? Let me get on this jug machine. Let me catch my balls like I always do. So I got on the jug machine. I go home at like 12:30.
Where is it? Where is that?
Where's
Jugs machine?
In the garage at my Airbnb, yeah.
Okay.
It's like 12:30 at night.
Who fed the machine?
My brothers were still up. They were all there with me, so.
They knew that you needed them that night?
They knew, yeah. They stayed with me. I was like, let's go. Let's get it in. It's no time to rest now. So got home, got on the jugs, caught 202 balls.
Why 202?
It's always been my number growing up. It's kind of a story that, when I was a kid, there was this other kid that we met that had really good hands. My father was with me. He did everything with us, and he caught, we asked him what he does, and he said he catches 200 balls a day. So we're like, you know what? We got to be better than him. We got to catch 202. So 202 was always my number. And it's just a little reminder that
So that night on the draft in the garage,
yeah,
you caught 202 balls,
202.
glistening with sweat.
It wasn't bad, yeah, but
Yeah.
a little sweaty.
So at the end of it, do you feel better, or are you still totally pissed off?
I'm still pissed off,
Yeah.
100%. But for me, it's like I'm just gonna go that much harder. For me, it was they just woke someone up for me. That was the mentality I had. Whoever picked me that next day, I knew I was gonna go. I didn't care who they had a receiver. I was gonna go in there and give it my all every day. And that's what I did when I came here. It was, I didn't know many people here, far away from home.
But in some ways, that was good, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Come and prove yourself in a totally foreign place where there aren't 100 things to do. There's football.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it was good for me, and I'm glad I'm here. I think it, couldn't have been a better situation for me. I love it here. But like I said, at the time I was pissed off. It was probably one of the most pissed off times I've been in my life.
But you use that.
For sure.
Yeah. Do you ever look back on it and say, I'm glad that happened because of what it did for me? Or are you still pissed off and you still think you should have gone way higher?
I think both.
Yeah.
Both for sure. I'm still pissed off to this day, and that's why I go so hard. Just every year, I want to make them pay for what they did. The teams that passed up on me, even if I saw some guy after my rookie year, he was like a scout on I think it was like the Panthers or something, or the Seahawks. He's like, I saw him in the elevator. He's like, man, good season. And I was like, yeah, you passed up on me. And he's like, yeah, we did. And that was that. So little things like that, I never forget. The teams that interviewed me, the guys they picked before. I'm watching. I still keep track of the guys.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that.
Yeah.
Do you really know all 16 players?
I do.
And
You want me to do it right now?
Yeah, I want you to do it right now.
On live, you ready?
Ready.
You got to count all. You got to count with me.
I'm gonna count.
All right.
One.
Jamar Chase, LSU.
2.
Devontae Smith, Alabama.
3.
Jalen Waddle, Alabama.
4.
Rashad Bateman, Minnesota.
5.
Kadarius Toney, Florida.
6.
Tutu Atwell, Louisville.
7.
Rondo Moore, Purdue. Elijah Moore, Ole Miss.
8.
Terrace Marshall, LSU.
9.
Dwayne Eskridge, Western Michigan.
10. Dwayne Eskridge, Western Michigan.
Yep. Nico Collins, Michigan.
11.
Anthony Schwartz, Auburn.
12.
De'Ami Brown, UNC.
13.
Josh Palmer, Tennessee.
15.
14.
Or no, 14. Sorry.
Yep. Josh
2
Palmer,
more.
Tennessee. Amari Rogers, Clemson. Des Fitzpatrick, Louisville. Amon-Ra St. Brown, USC.
You got them all.
Yeah.
And do you have it in your locker? Do you have it? Where is it?
So actually, I have it in my notebook. I have my goals written on my notebook. I read it 3 times. My goals, I read it 3 times every day before I go out to practice. Have 2023 goals, boom, at the top. Have the stats that I want, whatever, yada, yada, yada. Then I have round 4, pick 112, never forget. Then I have 1 through 16. I have all the receivers written, where they went to school. Bang, on that notebook. I read the whole thing 3 times before I go to practice every day.
Oh. Do any of those guys have more catches than you right now?
More catches? No, not more catches.
Take a little pride in that?
Yeah, it's cool, but I got to keep going.
Yeah.
Last year was last year. You got to be consistent in this league. And like I said, you're only as good as your last year. So I'm back at 0. I got to restart.
I want to ask you about this year. I wonder what you thought the night the NFL released the schedule. And you say, wow, we're going into the den of the Super Bowl champions. We got to beat the great Mahomes. What did you think that night when you saw it?
I was excited, honestly. I feel like, when I first got here, I remember my rookie year, we had 1 primetime game. I don't count really Thanksgiving. That's like a tradition. We had 1 primetime game my rookie year. That was Monday night, week 2 against the Packers. And that was it. Every other game, 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock. I remember talking to my brother. He's like, he was on the Packers at the time. They had 7 o'clock.
Equanimous St. Brown.
Yep, yeah. Correct. He had 7 o'clock games. He had Monday night, Sunday night. He's playing at different times. I'm watching him on TV. Prime time, almost like every 4 weeks. I'm like, man, it must be nice to get all those prime time games. I'm over here 1 o'clock every week, same time, same schedule. Nothing's changing.
No national games.
No national games. I'm like, it's fine. We'll get through one day. And then last year, again, I think we had I know we had the Thanksgiving game. We might have had one other primetime game, and that was it. And I was like, oh, here we go again. So we started off the year, whatever, 1-6, whatever it was, and then started winning some games, and then flexed our last game Sunday night, and we went on that roll, finished 9-8, and then this year, I wanted to play in Germany initially. I was texting, Ellie and the PR people here to see what's the news on the Germany game. Are we going to get it? Are we not? And I'm half German, so that Germany game would have been awesome. But they told me, it doesn't look like we're going to be playing in Germany. I was like, it's fine. And I found out the reason why we're not is because we have the opening game against Kansas City. And I was like, that's a pretty good trade. I'll take it. Week 1, everyone's watching. One of the most watched games of the year is opening day against the defending champs in Arrowhead. Heard it's one of the loudest stadiums in the league. So I'm super excited. I know this team, we're going to be ready. And I can't wait for us just to go out there. And, I'm just happy for the Lions, for us as a team to finally, get some people to watch. I'm not saying we're going to go out there and win. I don't know what's going to happen. The season is still ahead of us, but I'm just glad that we have an opportunity to show what we can do.
Last thing. So I think America thinks the Lions are a good story. Obviously, ended the year last year great. But I don't think anybody really knows, are you ready? Are you ready to be a true contender? Are you ready to play January and February games? Deep down, what do you think?
Obviously, I think we are, but that might be a biased opinion. We have to prove it to everyone. We have to prove it to ourselves. It's a long season. A lot of great teams in this league. In our division, a lot of great teams. So we got to prove it week in and week out. I can see why everyone thinks that. The Lions haven't done much for the last, you name it, decades. I mean, they haven't won many games, haven't won many playoff games. Shoot. So for us, we got to go out there and prove it every week. We got to put the work in right now. It starts now in camp. And then, moving forward to preseason and then week 1 and just putting that work in every week. And I think in this league, if you win games, that's all you really have to do. Winning speaks for itself. And that's it at the end of the day. If you win games, you kind of, you can shut people up. So at the end of the day, it's about winning, and that's what we got to do.
By the way, when you were a kid, was it an absolute constant that teachers and other adults you would meet would ask you to spell your name because they had never heard your name before?
Yeah, they wouldn't ask me to spell it. They would ask how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Usually when teachers, they roll call in the morning to see who's there and who's not. They would most of the time butcher my name. Sometimes I would correct them. Sometimes I wouldn't, because I don't really. If someone mispronounces my name, I'm not one of those guys that's just gonna correct it right away. If you ask me, I'll tell you how to say it. But yeah, they would say it wrong. I'm used to it.
I think I said it wrong. I said Amon-ra St. Brown.
It's close. Amon-ra.
Amon-ra.
There you go.
Amon-ra St.
Yeah.
Brown. And by the way, your father added the Saint,
Yep.
right? The crazy thing is your father has one of the most common names on the planet. His name is John Brown.
Yeah.
But tell me why he added the Saint before your last name.
Yeah, so he added the Saint because Brown is actually a slave name. So there's several reasons. Brown's a slave name. He didn't want his kids to have a slave name. So that was number one. Number two is he thought it would look better on the back of a jersey. He knew all along that, he wanted his kids to play sports and hopefully, be professional athletes. He was a bodybuilder when he was, competing. He competed as a bodybuilder, won the Mr. Universe, the Mr. World. And he knew that, bodybuilding he liked it, but he wished he would have played football. He told me that. He told us that. But, he just loved bodybuilding, and that's what he stuck with. But he knew that his kids, he wasn't going to put them into bodybuilding. He was going to make sure that they're going to play sports. It's just, better financially, better business. It's going to be, just more fun. As a kid, you can play more sports. So that's what we did. We played a bunch of different sports growing up. But the name St. Brown, he was actually choosing between St. and Vaughn. So as my first, equanimous was about to be born, he didn't know if he wanted to be Vaughn Brown or St. Brown. and he stuck with Saint. Like I said, Brown's a slave name. He didn't want that. He didn't want his kids to have slave names. And then St. Brown, he's like, that just sounds better, looks better on the back of a jersey, and I can't agree with him more. I think, Amon-Ra Brown doesn't sound too cool. I think St. Brown sounds a lot better. So I love my name. I'm glad he did it. But, yeah, that's the story behind it.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, have a great year. Thanks
you.
a lot for talking to me.
Thank you so much.
My thanks to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Man, that was entertaining. I really enjoyed that. And now, before we get to our final conversation of the pod, let's take this break. So, in Steelers camp, one of the interesting things, I find it very interesting, is that a year ago, there were all kinds of questions. Who's going to replace Ben Roethlisberger? Is it Mitchell Trubisky? Could it be, this rookie Kenny Pickett? What are we going to do without our franchise quarterback? What are we going to do without the general manager for a generation, Kevin Colbert? And obviously, they hired from within Omar Khan, a longtime Steeler executive. Well, you look at this year, I get to training camp. There's Omar Khan. He just had a great free agency season. And he's ready for year two, sort of quarterbacking the franchise off the field. And then on the field, there is a no-doubt starting quarterback, and that's Kenny Pickett from the University of Pittsburgh. After playing well down the stretch of last season, Mike Tomlin has said, "You're our guy." So he's our guy for the podcast. Let's listen to Kenny Pickett. Back at Steelers camp with starting quarterback Kenny Pickett. Now, Kenny, a year ago when you came into this situation, you were not the starting quarterback. And you had a quote on your first day here at camp where you said you kind of wanted to be seen and not heard last year. But now as the starting quarterback, you got to lead a little bit more. And have you found that you have to change a little bit from Kenny Pickett, the rookie, to Kenny Pickett, the sophomore starter?
Yeah, I'd say so, and I think it's a kind of a natural evolution. Like, I had to do it in college. I'm comfortable doing it. I kind of have a way about it where, that first couple of weeks you want to be seen, not heard. And as guys start to look at you as a leadership role, that's when you kind of start taking, the control. And I feel like I started doing that towards the end of the season. Had a great spring, and now we had a great start to camp. So I think it's all, trending in that direction.
I want to ask you one question about leadership. Derek Jeter once had a great line, because obviously he was a great leader with those great Yankee teams. And he had a great line. Somebody asked him, "Hey, what's the key to being a leader?" And he goes, "I don't really even think about it. I just know that when every player gets here in spring training, when every player gets here, we got to be here by 8 o'clock. I want to make sure I'm here by 7:15 taking extra ground balls. I want people to see that." Do you think leadership at this level is more of what you do than what you say?
I think, it's a little bit of both. You have to perform, and you have to have guys see you come up in big situations, and you have to be consistent out in the field every single day. And then, obviously, being able to relate to different kind of people, I think that's also huge. You can't talk to each guy the same. Each guy responds to leadership differently, and I think it's my job to understand and get to know these guys off the field and how they are as people. And that's really helped me, connect with these guys on the field and have success.
I want to ask you something about how last year ended. I believe you threw one interception in your last 8 games of the season last year. And I want to know, what was the key to that? What was the key to your maturation under the gun early in your career?
I think just seeing it and being able to play a little bit, being on practice or being on the practice team, the show team, the first couple of weeks, I wasn't able to play in our system. I was just running other people's stuff. So all my reps really went in our system were really mental reps. So I think after the bye week, and I had a chance to play those previous 3 weeks, had a chance to get a good practice weekend with the guys, and things started to slow down for me, and the system felt more comfortable. I had a lot of reps. I got to see things, and I felt like the game slowed down for me a little bit. So that's something that I want to continue to do and take a lot of reps out here and see different looks, and it just helps me be able to play fast on Sundays.
In terms of your adjustment to the pro game, is there one thing that stands out versus playing at Pitt and now playing for the Steelers?
I'd say volume of defense. In each game plan in college, you kind of would see multiple looks throughout a game, and in the NFL, you may see it one time and you may never see it again. In 60-something plays that you have. So I think that's the big difference: preparation and seeing all those looks that they've shown previously on tape, and try to be ready for as much as you can out there on Sundays, and just kind of go play fast.
I think the volume of plays is a cool thing. Last year, the key play in the Super Bowl was called by Andy Reid late against the Eagles. And when it was put in the game plan that week, Patrick Mahomes basically said to him, "Coach, this hasn't been in the game plan since September." And he goes, "Well, that's why we're going to use it now." It had been over 1,000 snaps since they used this play. How about that in terms of having to know that much and knowing that something you learn in August may not surface until January?
That's what's so special about really spring and training camp. You may run one thing, and like you said, it may be 1,000 plays till you run it again in a game, but at least you have something to fall back on and say, okay, we ran this, we had success, or we didn't have success, and this is why. So having those things and being able to understand a large volume of offense, and guys can comprehend that kind of stuff, it makes our life easier when the season comes around.
I want to ask you a little bit about your team, and especially George Pickens. I wasn't here, but I heard that the first play of your first practice of training camp, you threw for Pickens deep against Patrick Peterson. Was there any symbolism to that, or was it simply the first play on the play sheet?
First play on the play sheet, and it was the perfect look to make that throw. They pressed him. It was one high. George's one-on-one. I'm going to take that matchup, and it kind of played out that way. And I'm always going to give him those opportunities to go make those plays. I mean, we had a lot of success down the field last year together. I'm looking forward to building on that success, and, it all starts here in the timing and all that stuff. So if he has those opportunities, I'm going to throw him the football.
He seems like he's going to be a great player for a long time. What are his traits that you appreciate?
His catch radius, you just have to put it in his zip code, and that's all he says. He's like, just put it up for me, and I'll come down with it, which is, it's been the truth. It's every time, I put the ball up for him, I have no doubts that he's going to make the play. And if he doesn't, he doesn't. We'll go back to him again. So I have a ton of confidence in him. He wants to improve his route running and have a more route tree, which he's continuing to do, and it's been great to see. So I'm really excited for him. The sky's the limit for George.
The signing I really liked for you guys in the offseason was Allen Robinson. And obviously he comes in here feeling he has something to prove after some disappointing times with the Rams. But talk to me a little bit about what you found so far in Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I don't think Allen has anything to prove. I mean, he's a veteran guy that's done it year in and year out. I'm really excited to have him here. The knowledge of the game that he has, his understanding of football, of offensive football, defensive football, he really sees the field like a quarterback. So when you have a receiver like that with that kind of IQ that's played a lot of ball, it's really nice to have out there and kind of have a security blanket in terms of a guy that knows where to sit down in zones and things like that and how to get open. So I'm really happy to have him on our team.
I wonder sometimes, I just asked Patrick Peterson this question. When you come and play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, does the history ever hit you? Bradshaw, Roethlisberger, Pickett, and is that cool, or do you not really want to think of that too much because it can't help you?
Yeah, it can't help me right now. I hope I can look, back a couple of years, down the line after I'm done playing and say, it was like you said, it was Terry, Ben, and then myself, and I have a good run, and there's a lot to happen till then. But that's something I think down the road you could look at. Right now I'm just trying to go out there and win games. So, one step at a time. But hopefully, at the end of the road, I can look back and say that.
I'll end with this. When you look at what it's like to be the quarterback of the Steelers in Pittsburgh, and now you've been able to see it. I mean, Pitt fans are excited. It seems like it ratchets up a little bit with the Steelers. What have you learned so far about the fanaticism, the expectations, and what it's like to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, it's something I don't take lightly. I've always, watched the NFL, and, my best friend growing up was a Steelers fan, so I always watched the Steelers with him whenever they were on. So, I don't take it lightly. I take a lot of pride in being the quarterback of this city and this team, and it's a franchise that has greatness, going back a long ways. So I want to continue that greatness, and, I feel like I'm the guy to do it. and I got to lead our offense and lead our team. So, I don't take it lightly. I work really hard at it, obsess over trying to be the best player I could be to put us in this situation and win a championship. So, I'm going to, keep going at it every day.
Kenny Pickett, good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
My thanks to Kenny Pickett, to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and to Jalen Hurts for spending time with us and spending time for you on the Peter King podcast, on Peacock, all over the NBC Universal universe. And I want to end the podcast today with a little bit of a look into the near future. From here, the training camp trip will move down I-95 to Baltimore. After that, we're going to take a flight down to South Florida, see the Dolphins, then start to move back up, see the Atlanta Falcons, who were my sneaky pick to win the NFC South this year. Now, listen, you don't have to throw things at the TV or the radio or however you're listening to this. So I like the Falcons a little bit. You might like the Saints. You might like the Panthers. Whatever. You might like the Bucks, but I'm really kind of bullish on the Atlanta Falcons. Then after that, we'll go up to Spartanburg, South Carolina, to see the Carolina Panthers. Then after that, we will journey to the Midwest, and next week I will join you from the Midwest, from the sidelines at Green Bay Packers training camp. That's where you'll hear from me next. And that has been the first edition, the first episode of this year's The Peter King Podcast. Thanks a lot for watching, listening, experiencing, and we'll see you again next week.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.